This empty chair represents the addict who died today, not knowing recovery was possible.
How do you choose each other to be sponsor, sponsee? How do you know the person's right for you?
I think God just puts them in my life. You know, they just come to me, and when they come to me, they have sadness and pain in their eyes, and they're willing to do the work. They're willing to do what it takes to not just stay clean, but to recover from this disease.
Hi, my name's Phil Leahy, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of The Empty Chair. I hope all of you will remember, all of you that have been watching, you'll remember, that was Joy Gallagher. She died a little over a year ago, and if you remember, we had a lot of our sponsees come on, we did a show. Well, it's been a year now since we did that show, and what we have tonight is, I guess you would call this episode Moving On. We have two of her sponsees. We have, who we should have had that show there, we have her sponsor, and we have what the girls have as their new sponsor. So I'm going to introduce, this is Terry, who is Joy's sponsor. This is Jen, who has become the new sponsor. And this is Colleen and Stacy, who I'm sure you remember, who are in the process of moving on from Joy and on to Jen. So what we're going to do, all right, and I'm going to start with you, Terry, all right, because obviously you being Joy's sponsor, and we were talking about before, Joy used to say her girls, her sponsees, but with Joy, she was your girl. And I know we were talking, I know it's been a year and a couple of months since we've lost her, and you were telling me you're still having a bit of a hard time moving on. Try to explain, you know, it's been 14 months. What's kind of holding you back, you think?
Well, she was a big part of me. Like, we took so much time over the years, because there was a lot of years. You know, she died right before her 10th anniversary.
Right.
And I got her when she was 2 or 3 years clean. And she wanted to do step work. 12 steps, and when doing the step work, you got to do a lot of writing so you get to know the individual. And she did a lot of journaling, and she would read me her journaling, so I got to really get deep and get to know her, you know. And there was times when I would sleep over for the whole weekend, you know, and I would help her take care of her cat and get to know her family. So it wasn't just a sponsor relationship. After years, it became a friendship also. And I felt so bad because I abruptly had to leave the fellow I was living with in the Methuen area, and I had to go to Leominster to live. And the distance was so far, and the communication wasn't like it was.
Right. And
then you know, 2 years later, this happened, and it's just so much guilt that I carry, and it's hard. It's really hard for me. I haven't moved on, really. I'll be honest with you. The disease of addiction, it just takes so many loved ones, not just like, you know, it takes the person and it takes the loved ones of the person. And it's been very hard for me to move on because I feel like I should have done things differently. You know, I carry a lot of guilt, and I have a really hard time with, you know, like, I don't think I should raise my hand. I don't think I should reach out. I don't think I should sponsor because of what happened in the past. And, you know, it wasn't for, like, Colleen and, like, other girls have told me, like, no, that let go of the guilt. That there's the imagined guilt and there's the real guilt. You know what I mean? And that's a lot of imagined guilt, thinking that I am so powerful that it was all my fault. I am not God, and it wasn't my fault. You know, things happened the way they happened, you know, and I had to like really work through the process of letting go of the guilt.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so difficult.
Well, and I'm going to say even more so. I mean, I'm sure, like I know, as the distance you went away from Joy, probably, yeah. But I mean, I know myself, the girls, you. I mean, you must have all felt that she had a very strong recovery. So it must have shocked the heck out of you when you found out.
I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. I was so in denial. I didn't believe it.
Yeah.
I had heard stories. I had heard rumors. I even heard the voice on the phone that was different than the voice that I knew.
Yeah.
And I still blocked it out because I was in denial. I was in my own disease.
Right.
You know, and I just wish I wasn't.
So do you think the reason you still feel so much guilt about Joy is because you were her sponsor and you're feeling like you missed something maybe?
Yeah, like things could have been different.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I could have I just could have been living with her in that apartment
Yeah.
and helping her 24/7. And I know that that's impossible.
That's
I could have
right.
never done that. And I also have to know that I can't play the role of God.
You know, if nothing else, and, you know, you almost sound like the 6 girls I had 2 months after Joy died. Your emotions are pretty much like their emotions were a year ago. I hope this show, and I hope a little bit more time with the girls here, I do hope we'll be able to move on a little bit more, because everybody knows you're a fantastic sponsor. Everybody knows you have strong recovery. And everybody knows about you sponsoring Joy. Joy saved a lot of lives. She may have lost hers, but there's 2 girls in the back there that she saved their lives, and there's plenty others going around also. So over time, hopefully, and maybe with this show, it'll help you a bit too. Now, I know, Jen, you weren't a sponsor or a sponsee of Joy. I know you had a close connection. Let me ask you a different question. You're now sponsoring Colleen and Stacy. You had some pretty big shoes to fill. How was that trying to make the transformation, especially for them, from going from Joy to Jen? You want to pass that question?
Absolutely. Well, no, I mean, I think when I had the conversation with both Stacy and Renee, I voiced that I'm not Joy. I do things differently. I mean, yes, I do things the way the program is laid out. I do meet with my sponsor consistently every other week. And I was friends with Colleen and Stacy prior to, so we knew each other. So I mean, I think just by being myself and voicing like I'm not Joy, you know what I mean, and you know, and I do things differently. I approach things differently, and by that I mean like Joy. I'm more of like if I need to raise awareness, I do it in a more like joking manner, and Joy like was loud.
Yeah, we established that the last show. No matter all 6, it's one thing they did agree on Joy, she was loud.
Yeah, and I mean I've had to learn through my process of recovery too to just approach things differently. And there was a point where I was loud too, early on. But through my process, I've learned to. It is a lot about deliverance, and I have to really monitor how I deliver information because I don't want to set up, like I don't want to build up defenses where people aren't, you know, people put a wall up and not listen. Because I know for myself, like when I need to be told the truth about myself and where my disease is acting out in my life, my immediate reaction is I get defensive, and who are you to tell me you have no clue about me? And I mean, I said that to my own sponsor, like, you know, she'll raise something to my attention, you're being selfish and self-centered, and I'd be like, yep, okay, I'll call you back when I'm ready to hear this. You know, and I sit back and I know how to apply some tools, and then, you know, a few hours, maybe even a day later, I do call her back and I'm ready to hear the information that she's delivering.
Right. Either one of you can speak first. Now, a year ago, like I said, you were pretty much where Terry is right now. there was a lot of anger. So I want to ask you that first, before I go on to you moving on. Well, this is also, choosing another sponsor. When you did this show a year ago, both of you, and Jen Gillis, there was 3 of you that still had a lot of anger. Has that gone? As you've moved on, and like I say, either one of you first, has the anger gone?
It's gone for me
Good.
today.
Good.
It's not, I'm not angry at her, I'm angry at the disease.
Wonderful.
You know, wasn't easy,
No.
but, you know, and still today, I still have, you know, my moments where, like the beginning of the show, you know, it strikes a nerve, but it's not anger anymore. It's just I miss her.
And you in the same boat, Carl? Or?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, I have my moments where I'm still, you know, like I feel like angry, like she just left like so suddenly,
Yeah.
you know, like a very tragic like ending. And I do try and take my anger out on the disease, but I didn't see like the disease that night. Like I saw my sponsor like passed away like in front of me, and it was like really traumatic for me, you know. So, and just the way that it was, you know, the way it happened, like not to be like graphic, but it was planned, and it was she planned like the whole thing. So, like I try not to think about the thought that she put into it, because that makes me more angry.
Yeah.
It's like if you put that much thought into what you were gonna do, why not, you know, reach out for help or just do all this stuff that you told us? But like I deal with the whole thing, like I haven't completely dealt with it because I still have like some anger and some like questions and all that stuff, but I stuff it down a lot too, and I just deal with like a little bit at a time. Like sometimes like I just block it out and pretend like it never happened. But you know, every time I go to a meeting, like I can't help but think about her every time. I mean, anything regarding the fellowship that I go to, it just reminds me of her, you know.
Well, tell me something. Now, again, you and Stacy, what is something you could say to Terry to help her through her process, to at least where you are? I mean, I can see Terry, and it's almost like a flashback of a year ago that you 6 girls were sitting there, and actually more like Dolores. Dolores had sadness,
Yeah.
okay? Not the anger, but the sadness. So what can you guys do to help her move on to at least where you guys are?
Well, I mean, I've talked to Terry about this like a lot, and just like overwhelming gratitude for, you know, like everything that I learned from Joy came from you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm still here, so you know, the power of like, you know, you can only keep what you have by giving it away, and you gave it away. Like you gave it away to her, and then she gave it to us. And this is only like part. I mean, you know, Dana couldn't be here because she had to work, and Jen Gillis couldn't be here because she had to work. They're all living, doing life, and they're all doing very well. Everybody that was here last time is still clean, is still doing great. They just all couldn't make it. And there's like more out there that she helped, and that's a direct result of you and what you did for her. So, you know, even though the physical person of Joy is like gone, like what you gave to her like is living in all of us and our sponsees that we sponsor now, and hopefully the sponsees that they have, and it's going to keep going all down the line. So, I mean, that part of her legacy will like live on, like what you did for her. So I know I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah,
for
basically,
you.
what you taught Joy, and Joy taught them, and she teaches, and she teaches. Yeah, really, Joy's not dead.
No.
And it's basically because of you. Okay, so now, and we should, I promised Jen Gillis, because I got to be nice to her because she does our YouTube thing, okay? So why don't you guys mention the big day that Jen has coming?
Go ahead, T.
August 29th, Jen's getting married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all very happy for her. And, you know, that'll be a good moving on period for her, because as we all know, I think when she was here, she said that Joy was the only sponsor she ever had.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 And I don't know if she doesn't
She
have
does
one
not.
yet.
She-
So moving on
she
isn't
does
quite
not.
there. I don't know if her husband's going to be her new sponsor or what. Okay. Okay, so now you've had all these years with Joy, and I know right after that you kind of gravitated towards Terry to try to keep the connection, and because of the distance and everything else, you both asked Jen to be your sponsor. What brought that on? I mean, how did you, I mean, you guys had this thing with Joy, which is, I know why you know, kind of gravitated toward Terry. What made you go over to Jen? How did you choose her?
Well, when I first came in to the program, Jennifer was actually my first sponsor.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, for like the first 3 months.
Well, you dumped her for Joy then.
No, I didn't utilize Jennifer the way I was supposed to.
Okay.
Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And then I went to, a meeting, I heard Joy with her flailing arms and loud mouth, and that just became, you know what I mean? It just became, and then, but I continued to stay. Jennifer and I still stayed connected. Like she said, we're still friends, And then it was shortly after we had, after Joy services, Jennifer called me on the phone to check on me. And it was just a matter of seconds before I asked her, will you help me?
Mm-hmm.
Will you be my sponsor? And that was it. We had a conversation first because we had to figure out what happened the first time, what was going to be different, and she's been there since.
Has she played would you say she's played a significant role in helping you moving on?
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. The suggestions, writing a letter because I was so angry, writing a letter to Joy, stuff like that, and just praying, a lot of praying, a lot of, but huge.
But
very,
different.
very, but different. But she's right there.
Good.
She's right there.
And Carl, did you and Stacy do this roughly the same time? Or?
No, I was like a little bit later.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, like all that stuff. Like that's pretty much like how it was. And like Jennifer's been in my life for like a while, so she's always like been there. But I had gone to a meeting and we were talking outside, and it's the same thing. Like it just clicked with me. Like this is who's, I believe, hopefully is supposed to, because I didn't know if she would say yes or no, but I knew that I was supposed to ask her, if she could take me through the 12 steps. And you're supposed to, when you look for a sponsor, you look for something that they have that you want. And with Joy, like I wanted a voice, and she had a voice. Like, but we've said that, and I wanted that. But with Jennifer, like she seemed to have like forgiveness and like compassion and like empathy and like letting go of like resentments. And that was something that I was still struggling with, even with Joy. I was having a really hard time like letting go of resentments of people that hurt me, just whatever, And I wanted to be like free of all that stuff. And and I don't know, like I just like knew that she'd be able to help me with that. And she has helped me with that like a lot. I know there's nobody else that's supposed to take me like through the steps. Like it's just weird. Like when like who your sponsor is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you were both very fortunate to find someone. I mean, Joy, like I say, Joy was not just a big voice, but she was a big person.
Yeah.
Now, you said something, Cherry, because of what happened to Joy. Did you stop sponsoring others, or have you continued, or have you picked up anybody new, or?
Yeah, I did pick up someone new. Yeah.
And how did that progress? I mean, was like Joy always in the back of your mind when you're doing it, or are you able to? I mean, you look at the results of the two behind you, and that's basically through you. So obviously, I'd hate to see you give up sponsoring because you have so much to offer.
Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you. I keep it. It's like she said about deliverance. I deliver. I keep it right to the 12 steps, and I notice myself putting up shields and not letting them get in close because of what happened.
Okay, now you've obviously sponsored quite a few. Was Joy your closest sponsee
Yes,
you've
very
ever
much
had?
so. Yeah. Very
Because,
much.
I know I had talked to Joy before, and I'm sure Jen, and I know Colleen, anybody who was sponsored have had sponsees that weren't very successful.
Yeah.
And it obviously didn't affect them the way Joy has affected you. So when you get a new sponsee, you are trying to protect yourself from the close. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's something I have to work through. I don't
Yeah.
like it. I don't like it.
You'd rather have the closeness,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, I
Yeah.
have to work through that. Yeah. It's just been hard. It's been hard.
Well, tell me, Jen, is there any way you can relate to what she's going through?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you had sponsees you've lost that have been kind of,
In 2012, I was sponsored Naomi, and she came into the fellowship, and she was very, very loud. And she dived in, like, into the step work, doing the step work. Her significant other came out of jail, and that was put in front of her recovery. And she used one more time, and she's no longer here with us. And I, like Terry, like, I have since, so Colleen and Stacy, I haven't sponsored anybody since Naomi passed. And Naomi passed in 2012. So I can relate a lot to where Terry's coming from, because 2 days before Naomi passed, she asked me if she could come stay in my house. And I knew she was active, and I said, I can get you into a facility, I can bring you to detox, but no, you can't stay here. And, you know, and I go through that, you know, well, if I let her come stay, maybe she would still be here. You know, I was living with my son at the time, and like, I just wasn't willing to bring somebody active into my house. And it took a lot of work. I know her step work I burnt, and it's in a plant in my house, so Naomi is still growing in my home. You know, her ashes are there. I drive around, and her hat is hanging in my truck. You know, her prayer cards above, like, she's with me all the time. Sometimes she hits me over the head with the big book, the basic text. Whoa. Yeah, so, and she's with me, like, her spirit's here. And I had to, like, along with other guilt and shame that I've carried throughout my life, I've been practicing a lot of self-love and forgiveness since about February of this year. Because I heard someone share at a meeting, you know, how can I say I'm a woman of dignity and honor and have compassion for others when I make a mistake and I take the bad out and I start hitting myself, or I choose behaviors that are, you know, dangerous for myself or my recovery. And since I heard that woman say that in February, when I start to allow the disease to manifest in my brain and I'm not worth it, I don't deserve it, all those negative things that I can say to myself, I need to invite my higher power in and practice self-love and forgiveness, and that's probably the hardest thing.
okay, so being a sponsor, as we've seen, can be very rewarding, or it can also be very heartbreaking. All right, my lovely wife gave me the 5 minutes. She's nice. The others only give me 2 minutes. She gave me 5 minutes. What I'd like each of you to do, I'm going to start with you, Terry, and just kind of take a minute to say anything you'd like as far as where you're heading or whatever like that. But take a minute just to tell me what you feel about this whole situation.
Well, that I have hope that I can move on and get better. You know, and I did celebrate 18 years clean this past May. And my recovery does continue.
Yeah.
It's hard, but it does continue.
Yeah, and you know, and I do hope that in the future you will bring down those walls, because you know, you're a good sponsor and people want to be close and they want you to be close to us. So I know it'll happen because you're too good for it not to. Jen, you got a minute?
I'm not sure
You
what
got
you want me
30
to ask. What do you want me to
Basically, I
answer?
want to know anything you want as far as you being a sponsor to these two now. And the difference, you know, you've said already, but you've got two pretty good sponsees. Does that, and I know you have a closeness with them. Does the closeness scare you sometimes?
The closeness?
Yeah.
Yes, especially when I need to maybe deliver information that they don't want to hear. Because I want to be their friend, I want to be loved and accepted, but also I need to bring certain things to people's awareness.
Right. So it's almost, it's almost like being, what do they call a player's coach?
Kind of, sort of.
Okay. All right, Colleen, again, it's been a year since, you know, that we did the last show. Again, you know, in a minute, you think you've moved on? Do you see you progressing on this, you know, with Jen, with Stacy, and the rest of your NA family?
Yeah, I've definitely moved on. Like, yeah, a little bit of anger, whatever, but nothing compared to before. Because of like women like this. If anything, like this, you know, the tragedy has brought us even closer, like a lot closer. The bonds got a lot stronger. I'm very, very grateful for Terry, like her recovery, and Jennifer too, like for sharing that like with me, and you know, for being like my predecessors and showing me how to do this and guiding me through it. And you know, everything happens for a reason, like all the time. Even something as horrible as what happened April 4th of last year, I just try not to question it. I just stay clean like everybody else, and just, you know, just try and like keep it moving and working my recovery. I'm very grateful for Terry and Stacy and my sponsor Jennifer, because, you know, that's how we get through things like this.
Stace?
That's just it. You know, if it wasn't for Terry passing on her knowledge and, you know, wisdom to Joy, and then, you know, Joy passing it on to us, and now Jennifer passing what she knows on to us, we in turn, I have 2 sponsees that just celebrated a year each, you know, and we just continue. It's kind of like a pay it forward thing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And we will not use no matter what. And that's just it.
That's right.
You know, we'll just,
That's right.
it's a fighting force.
That was right. I thank you all for coming. Maybe we'll have you back in another year and we'll just see how far you've moved on. I think one of the things that you guys have all showed everybody, you can't do it on your own. All right? And even if you're clean, and even if you've got all those years of recovery, you still need a little help from
That's
your
right.
friends when something as devastating
That's right.
as Joy losing her battle affected you. So from the old sponsor, from the new sponsor, and from the sponsees who continue and sponsor their own, I thank you all for coming. I thank you all for joining us on the empty chair. I hope you do tell the people, your friends or whatever, that we're here, and we're also on YouTube by searching the Empty Chair Show. And we'll see you next month. Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
How do you choose each other to be sponsor, sponsee? How do you know the person's right for you?
I think God just puts them in my life. You know, they just come to me, and when they come to me, they have sadness and pain in their eyes, and they're willing to do the work. They're willing to do what it takes to not just stay clean, but to recover from this disease.